There's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about, and they relate to the Great Reset, which is why all of this is happening, which is why they're corralling you, why they're treating you like sheep, why the elites are demanding that you do exactly what they say, because this is the world that is coming on every front. You will not have control of your children. You will not. The state and the experts will be the ones that educate your children, period. You'll have no part in that. It boils down to complete and total control. And I know this sounds crazy if you haven't been following the Great Reset. And I think it sounds crazy because it is crazy. It is crazy. But it is happening. And it is happening in our country right now in a couple of ways. The financial sector is doing what's called ESG, and I'll get into that in a minute. And the Treasury has now adopted something called MMT. It's modern monetary theory. I explained it the other day on the television show. Listen to this. Let me show you exactly what MMT, modern monetary theory, is. When you print and spend unlimited amounts of money. Well, you will say you can't do that because that will lead to inflation. Inflation is too many dollars chasing too few goods. And that happens a couple of ways. You print the money, the Federal Reserve prints the money, and either gives it to the public sector or gives it to the government, and the government spends money. Let me show you the evils of this. When the government spends the money, let's say you want to, you're going to buy a new house, but that new house has to have a foundation of cement. It also has to have a lot of copper for all of the wires and everything else. Well, the prices are going through the roof because the government has trillions of dollars that they are also spending on infrastructure. They're competing against your copper wires. They're competing against your being able to buy concrete. It drives the price of everything through the roof. You, because of them, are screwing yourself. You're paying for it twice, maybe even sometimes 4 times, because the price keeps going up. So printing the money and government spending, that's inflation. That's how you get there. So how can modern monetary theory say we can print and spend unlimited amounts? Because of the second part, which we have not gotten to yet. They haven't really discussed this openly. The government can print and spend unlimited amounts of money. They can fund anything they want, as long as they have complete control of the products, production, and labor. Oh, and one more thing. Complete control of consumer spending. So let me just use gas, and this is a bad example because gasoline obviously is already on the ESG list to go away. But let's just say they wanted gasoline and cars to be something that you would want to use. When gas has a shortage or inflation rises up, they know how important gas is. So all they have to do is they have to go through all of the data, because they have where you work, how much you make, where you live, how much you drive. Can you live at home and work from home, or do you have to drive in? And is your job really essential to the overall economy? If it is, your debit card will work at gas stations. If it's not, you're staying home. And there's nothing you can do about it because they can have complete control of products, production, labor, and your spending. That is terrifying, but that is what's coming now. That's what ESG does. ESG is a financial way of saying we only care as a bank, not about your loan, credit score. We have to look at, is your business and what you're doing, and you as a person, are you doing everything environmentally sound? For instance, I told you about a half hour ago that Joe Biden said that he was going to be able to spend all this money, and you got to pass the Build Back Better bill. And in this, he's releasing to the governors a 461-page guide to help governors best utilize the programs launched by Biden's bipartisan infrastructure law, which includes $1 trillion in new funding. This is what the White House said. It's an absolute roadmap. Our primary goal is to empower people. Now, that would be good, but there's no period there. Our primary goal is to empower people across the nation with information. That would be good, but there's a comma. So they know what to apply for, who to contact, and how to get ready to rebuild, end quote. So in other words, there's not money here to help you build what you want to build. You'll be prepared after you read this 461-page booklet. You'll be prepared to know what the government wants you to build. That's the beginning of the control. ESG is something entirely different. ESG is environmental, social justice, and governance. So if you're not in line with the new government rules, well, sorry. I guess that's a problem. You may not get a loan. You certainly are not going to get a loan for gasoline. If the food is meat, well, that's not good for the environment. So the price is going to go up. They're already making it almost impossible to buy. That's not the ranchers. That's not the farmers. That's not reality. That's the government doing it. So it's really bad for the environment. So I'm not sure if we should really do that. Oh, okay. So you can have, your new U.S. digital coin. This is the reason why they're getting rid of Bitcoin and everything else, or trying to, is because they will introduce soon a digital Fed coin. And that Fed coin will replace the dollar, and it will be digital. That the Fed will have your bank account being in one bank, the Federal Reserve of the United States. That's a private bank. That's not a government bank. So they'll have everybody's bank account, and they'll be able to track everything you do. You know what? You've had too much meat. Now, there are states that are starting to stand up, and it's great that they're standing up. I want to point to one that just announced something yesterday and show you a trend that is beginning that must stop. And you are the key to this. Remember, the idea is to make you feel small and insignificant, that you have to comply. That's why they call you all these names. That's why they have trumped up all of this stuff about January 6th. We all were disgusted by January 6th. All of us. All of us. But what's happening now is insanity. Why is it happening? Because they must have control of the population. And over 50% of the population doesn't agree with it. So how do they do it? They have to control you in every way. They have to make sure that any kind of voice, Joe Rogan is the latest, is destroyed. I've seen this movie before. I starred in this movie. They have to destroy anyone who stands against them or provides an alternative. And that includes you. I mean, they know who's downloading Joe Rogan. You're also a threat because you've been infected. These are their own words, by the way. You've been infected by that. So now they have to look through all of your contacts to see, have you infected anyone? People think that this is at the highest levels only. It is coming to you very soon. So there is a way to stop it. And I'll give you one example when we come back. I'm going to give you some information and some hope here. Another state has joined the beginnings of a movement here on anti-ESG. There is happening in West Virginia. There's one in New Hampshire, and there is one in Texas. Today, we add Oklahoma. There is the bill that is very much like the one in West Virginia. In essence, it would divest the state from any financial institutions that boycott an energy company or anyone doing business with that companies if the discrimination is due to the relationship with the energy company, such as what BlackRock is doing. It is called the Energy Discrimination Elimination Act of 2022, and it would apply to any publicly traded financial services, banking, or investment company. And under the terms of legislation, the state would divest from those boycotting energy companies. Boycott energy company means in the bill, without any ordinary business purpose, refusing to deal with, terminating business activities with, or otherwise taking any action that is intended to penalize, inflict economic harm on, or limit commercial relations with the company because the company, A, engages in the exploration, production, utilization, transportation, sale, or manufacturing of fossil fuels-based energy, and does not commit or pledge to meet environmental standards beyond the applicable federal or state law, or B, does business with the company described by subparagraph A of this paragraph. So the best part of this, it appears, though, that it would apply to all activities that are indirectly related to energy production. So in other words, a bank can't deny services to a business because it refuses to use electric cars. This is really good. It couldn't refuse to give a loan to a trucking business because it uses gasoline-powered motor vehicles. So it's a full frontal assault on the E in ESG. But here's the disturbing trend. This is what the states are doing. They're all protecting. So far, look at what's happening here. West Virginia, then you have Texas, now Oklahoma. Those are all energy states. Our politicians need to understand you're not just protecting the energy companies, you have to protect us too. And I know that helps us, so I don't have to buy a certain car, otherwise I won't get a loan. I appreciate that. But what about the social justice and governance part?
Yeah, because they can get around these things too, even in these energy states with energy companies. They'll say, well, this oil company didn't sufficiently support the George Floyd protests.
Correct.
So therefore they violate the S.
The other is governance.
You got to go through all of it.
BlackRock forced the board of Exxon to get an anti-oil person on their board of directors. I mean, that's insane because that's the G in governance. So your state has to go for the E, the S, and the G and just ban all of it. If you are doing anything other than looking at someone's credit history and their income, that's it. You can't look at their social stance, their social media. There is no social score here. That's what has to be done. And we have to call our legislators in our state because the only ones that will do this are the states. And if we can get the red states to do it, great. You're not going to get California to do it because they believe in it. But you will at least be able to block these companies, and new companies will rise up. New banks will rise up. But they will block these companies from doing ESG, and that's the cornerstone of the Great Reset. If you don't have ESG, well, you're going to have to come up with something else because we just defeated your grand plan. So call your state legislature. Ask them. Say, New Hampshire's doing it, West Virginia, Oklahoma, Texas. What are we doing? If you're in a state house, you need to introduce a bill.
How'd you even, though, go about learning about this in a general way? Like, is there a big book or something that you could read about this and understand it?
Mine.
Oh.
Yeah. In fact, if you go to Glenn's new book or glennbeck.com, you will find there are a couple of places now taking orders. So that's really important. You can't get it from Amazon because they're so oversold. But there are a couple of places where they can take orders. Order it in your local bookstore and get it today. Audiobook coming soon. That's all I can say because we're waiting on Amazon to approve.